So, well, anyway, my suggestion, and I think it should be right, I seen the letter from the state. That treatment plant just needed to be upgraded. And there's a lot of things in there that I think is totally unnecessary.
So we're talking about whether or not the board wants to circulate an RFQ for a water and wastewater master plan update. If you want to discuss the treatment plant in that part itself, then we should agendize that for.
It says wastewater, that is the treatment plant, eh?
Well, the wastewater treatment plant is part of a master plan, I suppose?
Yeah, right.
Tertiary thing,
Yeah,
but it's not.
it's right here.
But if you want to discuss the actual treatment plant, then we should agendize that, so we can actually have a proper discussion. So this request is whether or not the board would like to send out an RFP for services to update the water wastewater master plan and the street lighting landscaping master plan.
And did you say in the past you've got no interest?
In 2022, it was circulated and we got we had interest, but people that had responded said that they were too busy and we got 0 proposals.
So there's no cost to the district to move forward with this item. You bring back the cost.
Yes.
If anybody's interested.
Right. So, I mean, there is a minor cost of staff time to circulate these things, but it's not very much.
Right, okay.
But yes, it would come back to the board to decide whether or not you want to do it.
So when we're running RFPs, when you're running an RFP, Mr. Dodds, are you doing any sort of sourcing prior to release of the RFP? In other words, if you have consultant groups that you know help write master plans, are you reaching out to those groups and saying, hey, this RFP will be live on this date, this time on these sites or wherever it's hosted?
So we do have an active list of people who have expressed interest before.
Yeah.
Because of our purchasing policy, we're required to submit it to the state clearinghouse, which goes to a much bigger picture. But we do also work through our district engineer who has a multitude of contacts in all different aspects. So whatever companies they've worked with before, they provide those and either we send them to them or they directly send it to them for all of these projects that we're doing. So like for the booster pump station, they had other contacts that actually didn't provide proposals, but had done booster pump stations for them before, and those were sent too. And every time we come across a new one, we add it to our list. Whether they're really interested or not, we end up sending all of these things. So we try to improve our outreach as much as possible each time we send something out. And we do some research ahead of time to try to find especially local firms within 100 miles to try to increase our chances of having some sort of competition.
Can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Okay. Having in my professional capacity over the past nearly 8 years run more than 100 RFPs, I have done some, sometimes 2 and 3 times because I haven't put the effort into the sourcing on the front end. So not wanting to do things 2 and 3 times for the sake of doing things 2 or 3 times, I now am very diligent about my sourcing. So through your contacts with a district engineer or knowing sources that can provide the services that we're asking for, I would get the contact person for that company or firm and let them know 7 days in advance of when this thing will be posted, where they can find it, where they can download it, and where they can respond. Then a week before it closes, before the actual bid time closes, send them a reminder. We would love to have your proposal. It's still posted here. The date and time of closing is this. And I've found that the response is generally exponentially better than 0 because I've had to rerun RFPs getting 0 response. If this is a case where 3 years ago, 2 years ago, we didn't get any response, I think that perhaps that would be something that would be beneficial to get more proposals or at least better response from your efforts.
Yeah. So, I mean, of what you're describing, basically the only part we're not doing is sending a reminder. We can certainly work something like that into our process. Because we were sending it to them in the first place, so sending it again isn't a big deal.
So that is prompting people to light a fire and get things proposed. Anyway,
And like I mentioned, we did have interest in it, we just didn't get any proposals because they, those companies that would have proposed were busy, and they didn't have time to do it. Which, I'd rather they tell me they don't have time to do it and not propose on it than propose on it and not be able to do it. So,
when you're putting the RFP together, are you asking for a very specific timeline for when the expectation is the services would be rendered? Or is it left sort of, not open-ended, but flexible?
in this particular case, we are looking for a time frame to get it done. In some cases, we don't have necessarily a time frame unless it's attached to some sort of other requirement or funding. I have to look through here to see what our requirement was in this particular case. But generally, it just depends on what we're doing. So some things we're not in a hurry for, and we can get a better price by not being in a hurry.
Yeah. In this case, there's not a pending project that's with grant funding expiring, so I think that we could be flexible. And in the case of, this is my second suggestion, whether you ask for it or not, you could ask for a particular time frame. The expectations would be we would like the results of our master plan by whatever, June 2025. However, if you can't meet that timeline, please feel free to propose an alternate timeline. At least that way, if people, companies are willing to do the work, they just don't have the manpower to do it the first 6 months of the year, we can tell you that. And it's upon the reviewers or the RFP committee to determine whether that new proposed timeline would be acceptable or not.
Right. And virtually every time we ask them for their version of the schedule, especially if we're not asking for a time frame. And I would have to say that every single time that we asked for just a schedule, they provided something that was more than adequate to meet our needs.
Fair enough. All right, any other board comment? Any public comment? No.
I'd like to make a motion to approve going forward.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Director Green to send out the request for qualifications proposal for the water and wastewater master plan update and street lighting master plan.
That is
By
correct.
Sangster. Director Beatty.
Yes.
Director Green.
Yes.
Director Smiley.
Yes.
Director Davis.
Yes.
Director Sangster.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. No absence. I didn't see a time frame of that either.
Okay. So we're going to adjourn the GSA, Groundwater Sustainability Agency.
Time?
8:53.
8:53.
You have to do the hammer. Do it.
I need a time for
Yeah, just as a reminder, there are cupcakes in the back.
Oh my God.
Maybe in the back one.
Yeah, I didn't get any candy.
I ate my 5 minutes from that.
I know, I was sitting there watching
dinner.
That's why I don't donate.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to GSA board action items. Item number 1, update from Paso Basin Cooperative Committee, December 16, 2024 special meeting.
So the cooperative committee had a meeting on December 16th, this Monday. The agenda is attached to this agenda for your reference. The key things that they talked about was the state water project feasibility study, the joint powers agreement, which we'll be talking about shortly, the cost of service study, which is not discussed tonight, and the future budget for the cooperative committee. Starting with the state water project feasibility study, I think that they're finally coming around to the fact that it wasn't a good idea before, it's not a good idea now. And in my opinion, we're paying a bunch of money for something that doesn't make any sense, is not really based on good data. It's just kind of like, here's a price based on something that may work somewhere. I don't know where that project's going to end up in the end, but it doesn't sound like it's going to move forward. But been wrong about that one before, so maybe it exists somewhere. The other item regarding the cost of service study, that's another project that's being paid for by grant funding from the Sigma grant through the county. They have made significant progress from where they were. However, there's still a lot of questions regarding what costs would be paid for, whether those costs are realistic. And the next step for them would be to be providing some sort of an actual unit cost per parcel or per acre foot of water to pay for a successor agency for the PDCC. I sent out that entire board packet to everybody via email. That what was presented at this meeting is good information, and everybody should, if you have time, look at it. It gives you a good idea of what they're looking at. The direction going forward was to narrow down the options and bring back the actual cost per user, or not per user, but per parcel. Sorry. And I don't know if that's going to come back in January at the PDCC meeting in January, or if it'll get shoved off to February. But that's another project that was under the same timeline as our project, which was supposed to be done by April 1st. They're sort of running out of time to get there, so I think they can make it if they really try, but it's going to take a while. Regarding the fiscal year 25-26 PDCC budget, wasn't really much to talk about there. It is being brought back at the next PDCC meeting for consideration. There's two paths for that. One, as PDCC exists today, and two, a budget for a JPA, which would be significantly more. So, as more information is available for that, then we can share that with this board. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about the Joint Powers Agreement here shortly. The second half of that meeting was a town hall meeting. I wasn't able to stay for that, but our district engineer attended that and said that it was very well attended. There was a lot of people, especially a lot of de minimis users, single family parcels that really had no idea of what this looked like for them, and that was the biggest question on what it was going to end up costing them in the future. But regardless, there was a lot of people, a lot of interest, which was good to see. There was a large concern from other people that in the previous meetings that it wasn't going to have very much attendance because of the timing. So I was happy to see there was a lot of people there. That's about all I have for you, unless you have any questions.
Board, questions, comments? Gentlemen? How about public comment?
Yes, thank you. First off, before I start, all three of these items are going to be separate with public comment?
Yes.
Okay. The first one, I was at the meeting. I've been to every GSA meeting. I've been to every meeting for 12 years. So, there was a couple hundred people there. That's not very many out of 8,000 people that live in the basin. They might think it's a lot of people, but with the short deal before 9 days before Christmas, people weren't interested in something and tomorrow they have to turn in their comments on the 5-year GSP update, which nobody knew about until last week. So their whole deal is ridiculous. They got this grant in August of 2022. What date is it today? December of 2024. They have not did anything. Jay Lohr got up, who was the guy on the blended water project, and shamed them for it wasn't what he perceived it to be, and gave his credentials as a civil engineer. He says, I'm not leaving my 3 children with $85 million project for 10 to 26 people. To get water, we don't even know what the water costs. That's just the infrastructure. Every project they put forward for that $7.6 million was a failure. They spent $3.5 million on a pipe to go from Paso Robles waste facility underneath the river road to the east side for this proposed project that they're not going to build for the $85 million without the water. You guys, it was going to cost you almost $1 million to get $1 million. It was a joke, you didn't have a contract, whatever. So there's $4.5 million. The rest of it was spent on consultants that studied things we already studied. The state water project they talked about, already been studied 6 times. I took the 6 studies to the board of supervisors to show them we already studied it. There's 29 contractors in table A water. I can tell you everything about table A state water and everything about it. Nothing was new. The cost of it, how it comes, where it goes, who has it, who doesn't have it, how you get it. $3 million a mile to put in a pipe. They wanted to go 10 miles. They don't have 30 million. They don't have the 85 million. Everything they've done was to help 2 perceived groups, EPC and Shannon San Juan, to benefit themselves. And we'll wait till the other 2 things not continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board comment or any? No. Moving on. Moving on to item number 2, discuss and appoint San Miguel C.S.D. GSA representation to the Paso Basin Cooperative Committee.
So previously, Director Baker was the member and I was the alternate for the Paso Basin Cooperative Committee. Obviously, he has parted with the board, so we need at least to appoint a new member. I would recommend appointing a new member and a new alternate, both from the board. If you'd like me to still serve as an alternate, I'd be more than happy to. It does become a little bit difficult as an alternate and staff. Things get a little bit mixed up. So my preference personally would be 2 board members on the board, a member and an alternate. But we do need to at least appoint a new member. So if anybody is interested in doing that, at this point it's 1 meeting every other month, which is usually the Wednesday before our meeting.
What time do the meetings?
They start at 3:30 and usually go till 6. 5:30.
Paso Robles?
Currently they're at the Paso Robles Council's Chamber at the library downtown.
Board comment?
Yes. Now, the way I understand, it doesn't necessarily have to be a board member.
So it doesn't have to be a board member, but it does have to be somebody responsible or that has authority with the district.
Just to clarify, when the board appointed Berkeley Baker.
Yeah, right, yeah.
There was also a formal vote of this board to make it a policy that the primary would be a director. And so if you don't want the primary to have to be a director, you will need to take action to reverse that policy. So while there's nothing in the MOU or the MOA or any other standard that requires you to have it be a board member, you can appoint whoever you want. the past board did make that policy, and so you just need to reverse it first before you appoint somebody who's not a director if you want to do that.
So would that be agendized?
Yeah.
Or,
To reverse it, yes.
To reverse that policy,
or could it be part of
I think
the,
you could make it the same motion.
part of the motion?
No, that's how we did it last time, I think it'd be fine if you made it the same motion.
Okay.
It's all within the bounds of the appointment and who you want to serve. So,
In these meetings, there action that would be taken that would require that authority? In other words, it should be somebody who's elected to the position, or?
So in that capacity as member or alternate, you are really spending the district's money. So anything that's approved through the PVCC is going to have some sort of cost to it, whether it's just approving staff time to do something. So, you having authority to spend money and to assign tasks and under the district, that's basically what you're doing. So, if the thought is to appoint somebody that's outside of the district, that's not staff and not a board member, then I don't know where we would stand legally with that. I guess if the board authorizes somebody that's not related to the board or the staff to do something, then that would be okay. But that's something for Ms. Pritchard to weigh in on. But in general, you're obligating funds from the district to pay for whatever is being done at the PVCC, and you're authorizing or approving contracts and or reports that have an impact on the district, some financially, some not.
Understood, thank you. Other board comment? Anything would like the...
Is there public comment? We have to go to public comment.
We do.
Okay.
Would you like to go to public comment now, or
I'm willing to go to public comment.
would anyone be interested in the position, I guess?
You said Wednesday, last Wednesday at what?
So it's every other month, usually the day before our board meeting.
Okay.
So the Wednesday before our board
And you
meeting.
said at 3:30?
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
Only been in a million times.
Is there a Zoom option?
So there is, so it can be noticed as remote.
Okay. Oh, we can take public comment while people are chewing on that.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Rick Grewal, thank you. I don't know, but I think maybe your last representative, Mr. Berkeley, Mike Baker, might want to be your guy, and that's up to you guys. I will tell you this. The people that are on that board aren't supposed to be making decisions. That is not what that board was set up for. They're supposed to bring back what happens at that meeting to this board. And this board is supposed to make a decision and send that person back to tell that board what their decision is. You guys have an invisible staff guy I've never met. I've been coming here for I don't know how long. And somehow there's this person called the staff guy that's underneath that guy that somehow makes decisions that you guys or the other guys didn't even know that are making decisions. To me, that's unacceptable. Your board is elected. Your board represents the community. Your board takes the hit if somebody else does something outside of whatever. Your board needs to hear from your representative, hey, here's what they want to do. What do you guys want to do? What do you want to tell them? It's not, oh, I thought they wanted to do this, I'm just gonna make the decision to do this, and then you guys find out later on what this guy did without you even knowing what he did. That's unacceptable in my book. I don't know how it is in your book, but I don't think there's anybody sitting on this board right now that knows what happened the other day. And like I said, I've been going to every meeting for the last 12 years for all this stuff. And I can tell you everything, what everybody says and what they try to do. And there's ex parte meetings taking place without you guys being there. I don't know if your invisible staff guys are there. I know who's there from reading the minutes of these other people's meetings and knowing who participates and votes on stuff without disclosing they're at an ex parte meeting. And then declaring that somehow they came up with this magical stuff and they're gonna pass it. They cost you money. And they look at you guys, and we're gonna get to the third item here that's really, really good, on how much more it's gonna cost you to be part of this, goofball deal that doesn't produce anything. We're at the 10-year anniversary of Sigma. Not 1 gallon of water has been saved. Nothing's been done, other than them sitting around shaking each other's hands. Hey.
Any other public comments? No. All right, back to the board.
Is there an interest down there?
Yes.
Huh? No.
No, not, I want to do whatever we have to do to not, I mean, I think I want a board member on there, but I also, there's someone else I have in mind that I think has been doing a great job to do it, so it's kind of, we have to do two different things, right?
Well, can the alternate and the appointed both attend the meetings?
Oh, yeah. So
together?
you can both attend, but there is only one seat. So if the member and the alternate both go, then the member is the representative and the alternate can, watch.
I see.
That's how it was working before, is Mr. Baker would be
Right, but is he
attending and I
still,
would be, observing.
is he still willing to participate in that?
I wasn't aware that this was an option from the board, so I haven't talked to him about it.
Right.
I don't know.
For the Baker?
Yeah.
I talked to him and he did not seem interested in continuing. He said he wanted to know what was gonna happen at the 16th meeting, sit in on that, but he'd have to think about whether he wanted a continued role. And so someone should have a deeper discussion with him to make sure he's gonna commit before we decide to appoint him.
Well, then,
Can we come back to this?
Yeah.
Or is this something that has to be made a
Well,
decision?
we will have to make a decision.
Of course.
Until that time, then I'll
When's
continue
the
as
next
alternate.
when's the next meeting?
Whatever the Wednesday before our next meeting is.
22nd or something in January.
It's in January?
Interest on, from a current board member and then perhaps Berkeley as the alternate,
The 22nd,
if he were willing.
Are you interested in doing it?
Possibly. I'm just, I got 3 kids and
They don't like water?
yeah,
He lives on Soka.
so there is interest in me, but I just don't want to commit unless I can, 100% say that. I don't want to take away from my family any more than I have to.
I'm committed to 116 meetings this next year.
Yeah, how about 117?
No. Have to add another what?
You don't have to agree, it says we're going to appoint you.
No, not doing it.
Oh, I'm interested.
Sorry, we're committed.
You, Berkeley. No.
So,
Are you interested? Not at all.
so it's generally 2 hours, give or take, the Wednesday before our board meeting. It is available for remote participation generally, as long as they're at the Paso council chambers, when they're somewhere else, it doesn't work very well.
Okay. What would you like to do, gentlemen?
Special meeting, talk to Berkeley.
Yeah.
A special meeting with that as the only topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, unless something else comes up in board comment.
All right.
A special meeting, meaning another one other than the Thursdays that we have, just to discuss this?
Yeah.
This is pretty important.
Well, we want to get some.
So we already have a representative there. I mean, what's the rush to try to?
That's true. No, you're right.
So I mean, why do we have to rush and have a special meeting?
No, we don't. Kelly can continue as the alternate. And until we have a chance to discuss it with Mr. Baker.
Okay. Will we table this to the next meeting?
Of course. So just so I'm understanding, the intention is to discuss with Director Baker, former Director Baker, on whether or not he wants to be the member still. And do you see any legal reason you can't be the member?
They did not limit it in the MOA, so
I'll talk to Berkeley and see if he is interested in doing that.
So table it to the January 23rd meeting, 2025.
Yeah.
Or continue it, whatever you want to do.
Well,
Table it,
continue it.
continue, okay.
So, just for formality, all in favor of continuing until the January 23rd board meeting to gather information from Director Baker?
Aye.
Did you have another question, Director Greer?
Anyone opposed? Hearing none.
Okay.
Okay.
Move on to item 3, review of draft joint exercise of powers agreement for administration of Paso Robles area groundwater sub-basin groundwater sustainability.
thank you. So prior to May, there had been issues presented in this board with the PDCC, how it was operating, the purpose of the MLA, and issues with certain entities not following the terms of that MLA. When we discussed it, I believe in March or April, I brought up that it was meant to be a temporary agreement. It was not meant to be a permanent document of governance for the GSP. It states it in the agreement, and it is starting to cause issues because there is a lack of governance and implementation and agreement on how the GSP is to be implemented by all these GSAs who've been one GSP for the basin. In May, I received correspondence from counsel for the county wanting to start discussions over a potential JPA agreement. I brought that to this board. There wasn't an agreement at the time. She just wanted to discuss potential terms and what the entities wanted to do, whether it was a JPA, whether there was some other form of governance. They wanted to do something more permanent than this MOA that is out there. There are very detailed minutes of several meetings where I brought this up. Mr. Graywall was there, and I did receive consensus from the board to continue these discussions. So there are indeed back room legal counsel discussions occurring. I only do things that this board authorizes.